I never thought I'd be sitting across from my own daughter in a courtroom, fighting for the child she threw away like yesterday's newspaper. But there I was, 72 years old, arthritic hands trembling in my lap, watching her lawyer shuffle papers like they held the keys to heaven itself. My grandson Tyler sat beside me, his fingers doing that little tapping thing they do when he's thinking real hard. 10 years. 10 years I'd raised that boy alone, after she dropped him on my doorstep, with 2 garbage bags of clothes, and drove off into her new life, and now she wanted him back. Or rather, she wanted his $3.2 million. You know what breaks a grandmother's heart? It ain't the sleepless nights, or the doctor's appointments, or learning about autism spectrum disorder from scratch at 62. It's watching your own child become someone you don't recognize anymore. Someone who could look at her beautiful, brilliant boy and see nothing but a burden she couldn't wait to shed. I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me back up, because this story needs to be told from the beginning. Needs to be told right. Because what my Tyler did in that courtroom wasn't just smart. It was justice served cold and perfect, the way only truth can serve it. March 15, 2015. That's the day my world turned upside down. And somehow right side up, all at the same time. I was living in my little ranch house in Columbus, Ohio, tending my tomato garden and playing bridge on Thursday nights. My daughter Jennifer had moved to California 3 years prior with that husband of hers, Marcus. They had Tyler when Jennifer was 28. He was the most precious thing, all big blue eyes and curiosity about everything. But around age 3, we noticed Tyler was different, didn't like being touched much, got real upset when his routines changed, wouldn't look you in the eye. But Lord, that child could focus on patterns and numbers like nothing I'd ever seen. The diagnosis came when he was 4, autism spectrum disorder. High functioning, they said. But Jennifer heard that word autism, and something in her just shut down. She called me less and less, made excuses why we couldn't visit. Then Marcus left her, said he couldn't handle the stress of a special needs child. What he meant was he couldn't handle being a real father. Jennifer spiraled after that. Started drinking, lost her job at the marketing firm. And then that March morning, my doorbell rang at 6:30 a.m. There she stood, makeup smeared, eyes hollow. Tyler was holding his stuffed elephant, Mr. Trunk, looking confused and scared. "I can't do this anymore, Mom," Jennifer said, and her voice was flat, empty. "I just can't. He needs too much. I need to find myself again." Find herself, like she'd been lost somewhere, instead of being a mother to a beautiful 5-year-old boy who needed her. I looked down at Tyler, who was staring at the porch light, counting under his breath. 1, 2, 3, 4, over and over, his comfort pattern. "Jennifer, honey, you're tired. Come inside. Let's talk about this." "There's nothing to talk about." She shoved a folder into my hands. Medical records, school papers, his IEP documentation. "You're good with him. He listens to you. I've got a chance at a job in Phoenix. Fresh start. And I can't take him with me." My heart was pounding so hard, I thought it might burst right through my chest. "You're his mother. And you're his grandmother. Please, Mom, I'm drowning here. I'll send money when I can. I just need some time." Time. She needed time. This precious little boy needed his mother, but she needed time. I looked at Tyler again, and he looked up at me finally. Those big eyes so full of trust it broke me clean in half. I knelt down right there on that cold porch. "Tyler, honey, how would you like to stay with Grandma for a while?" He nodded once, then went back to counting the porch light. That while turned into forever. Jennifer sent $200 the first month, nothing the second, and then her phone number stopped working altogether. I hired a lawyer with money I didn't have, got emergency custody, then full legal guardianship 6 months later. She never showed up to a single hearing, just vanished into whatever new life she'd convinced herself would be better without her son. Those first years were hard. I won't lie to you. Tyler needed structure, routine, patience I had to dig deep to find. I was 62 years old, learning about sensory processing issues and social stories, and why certain fabrics made him scream like he was on fire. I learned that transitions needed warnings, that changes needed preparation, that his literal way of understanding the world wasn't wrong, just different. But I also discovered something beautiful. That boy's mind was extraordinary. By age 7, he was doing algebra for fun. By 9, he'd taught himself 3 programming languages from library books. He'd sit at my old desktop computer for hours, creating patterns and programs that looked like art to me, but were apparently quite sophisticated. A teacher at school told me Tyler had a gift, that his autism wasn't something to fix, but something to understand and support. I worked part-time at the library, stretched my social security, sold Bill's old tools and fishing gear. We made it work, and Tyler thrived. Slowly, beautifully, he came out of his shell with me. He started calling me Grandma Rose when he was 8. Very formally, very sweetly. He'd make me cards with perfect geometric designs for my birthday. He'd remind me to take my blood pressure medication. He'd water the tomatoes exactly how I showed him, same time every evening, never missing once. We became a team, him and me. My purpose became raising this remarkable child, who the world wanted to label and limit, but who I knew was destined for something extraordinary. When Tyler turned 13, he came to me with an idea. He'd been watching me struggle with my medications, all the different bottles and schedules. He'd noticed other seniors at the community center had the same problem. "Grandma Rose," he said, "not quite meeting my eyes, but close, so close. I want to build an app that helps people remember their medicine, with colors and patterns and sounds that make sense. Can I try?" Could he try? My brilliant grandson wanted to solve problems for people. I told him yes, of course yes, and I meant it with everything in me. He spent the next year working on it, taught himself advanced programming, user interface design, beta testing protocols. He showed it to his computer science teacher, who connected him with a local tech mentor. By 14, he had a working prototype. By 15, he'd launched MediPattern on the App Store. Within 6 months, it had 300,000 downloads. Within a year, he had a contract with a major health insurance company, $3.2 million for a 15-year-old who just wanted to help his grandma remember her heart medication. That money went straight into a trust I'd set up with our lawyer, Mr. Peterson. Every penny protected for Tyler's future, his education, his independence. We kept living in our little house, kept our routines. Tyler didn't care about the money, except that it meant he'd helped people. That's all that mattered to him. He'd read the reviews of his app every night, the ones from seniors thanking him for making their lives easier, and he'd smile this small, private smile that made my heart swell up like a balloon. Then, 3 months ago, my doorbell rang. I wasn't expecting anyone. Tyler was at his coding club at school. I opened the door and there she stood, Jennifer, my daughter, 10 years older, different haircut, expensive-looking clothes, and behind her, a man in a suit carrying a briefcase. "Hello, Mom," she said, and smiled like we'd just seen each other last week, like she hadn't abandoned her son, like she hadn't disappeared into thin air for a decade. My voice came out strangled. "Jennifer, I know it's been a while. Can we come in? This is my attorney, Richard Castellano. We have some things we need to discuss about Tyler." I should have slammed the door right then, should have told her to get off my property. But shock does funny things to a person. I stepped aside and let them in, my hands starting to shake. They sat in my living room, her eyes roaming over everything, like she was cataloging it for some purpose. "I'll get straight to the point," Castellano said, pulling papers from his briefcase. "Ms. Morrison has retained my services to help her regain custody of her son, Tyler Morrison. As his biological mother, who never formally terminated her parental rights, she has a legal claim to custody, which would include management of the minor child's assets and trust fund. The world tilted sideways. You want custody. After 10 years, Jennifer leaned forward, and I swear, she looked almost sympathetic. Almost. Mom, I was in a bad place back then. I've done a lot of work on myself. Therapy, sobriety, I have a good job now. I'm ready to be Tyler's mother again. And honestly, at your age, caring for a special needs teenager. I'm thinking of what's best for Tyler. What's best for Tyler? My vision went red around the edges. You think $3.2 million is what's best for Tyler? That's an ugly accusation, Castellano interjected. My client's motivations are purely maternal. However, as Tyler's natural mother, she would indeed have fiduciary responsibility for his assets until he reaches majority. I stood up, my 72-year-old niece screaming in protest. Get out of my house. Right now. Jennifer stood too, and there were actual tears in her eyes. Actual tears, like she was the victim here. I knew you'd react like this. That's why we're prepared to file in court. I didn't want it to come to this. But Tyler deserves his real mother. They left papers on my coffee table. A custody petition. They were actually doing this. I called Mr. Peterson in a panic. He came over that evening, read through everything, and his face got graver with each page. Tyler sat next to me on the couch, processing what was happening in his methodical way. He'd been quiet since I told him his mother was back. Just that little finger tap-tap-tapping on his knee. Rose, Mr. Peterson said finally, and his voice was gentle but honest. This is complicated. She never terminated her rights. She's been sober for 2 years according to these records, has stable employment, completed parenting courses. A judge might look at this and see a mother who made mistakes but got her life together. And there's the financial element. $3.2 million is significant motivation. And while we can argue that, it's not an automatic disqualifier. But she abandoned him. My voice cracked. She left him on my porch and disappeared. I know, and we'll present that. We'll present everything you've done, how Tyler has thrived. But Rose, he paused, looked at Tyler, then back at me. We might lose. Biological parents have strong legal standing. You need to prepare yourself for that possibility. I felt like the floor had opened up beneath me. 10 years. 10 years of loving this boy, raising him, being there for every meltdown and breakthrough, and ordinary Tuesday evening. And she could just waltz back in and take him and his money, and destroy everything we'd built. Tyler's hand slipped into mine. His voice was quiet but steady. Grandma Rose, it's okay. It's not okay, sweetheart. I have an idea, he said. The custody hearing was on a Tuesday morning in October. The courtroom was cold and impersonal, nothing like the warm home Tyler and I had built together. Jennifer sat across the aisle with Castellano, wearing a tasteful dress and pearl earrings, looking every inch the reformed, responsible mother. I wore my Sunday best and felt ancient, outmatched. Judge Barbara Hendricks presided, a stern woman in her 50s, who gave nothing away in her expression. Jennifer's side went first. Castellano painted a picture of a woman who'd struggled with postpartum depression and overwhelming circumstances, who'd made the painful decision to let her mother help temporarily, who'd spent years getting healthy so she could return to her son. Jennifer testified with tears running down her cheeks, talking about how much she'd missed Tyler, how she'd thought about him every single day, how she was ready now to be the mother he deserved. I wanted to scream. Instead, I sat there, watching this performance, feeling my heart shatter into smaller and smaller pieces. Then it was our turn. Mr. Peterson presented the guardianship papers, my testimony about the abandonment, Tyler's medical records showing how he'd thrived under my care. He brought in Tyler's teachers, his doctor, his coding mentor. Everyone testified that Tyler was happy, well-adjusted, thriving. But I could see it in the judge's face. She was weighing it all. And biological parent rights are powerful. When she asked if Jennifer had been abusive or neglectful during the custody period, the answer was technically no. She just left. Then Tyler asked to speak. Judge Hendricks looked surprised but nodded. My 15-year-old grandson stood up, walked to the witness stand, placed his hand on the Bible, and took the oath. He still didn't make eye contact, but his voice was clear. Your Honor, I'd like to address my mother directly, if that's permitted. The judge nodded. Tyler turned toward Jennifer. I held my breath. Mom, I want to understand. Can you tell me about my 7th birthday party? Jennifer blinked. Your 7th birthday? Yes. What was the theme? What cake did I want? Who came? She hesitated. Tyler, I wasn't there for that. I was working on myself. What about my 8th birthday? My 9th? Can you tell me about any day? From when I was 6 to 16. His voice never wavered. Can you tell me my favorite food? What makes me anxious? How I like my morning routine? What my app does? Jennifer's lawyer started to object, but Tyler continued, his pattern of logic relentless and beautiful. Can you name one doctor's appointment you took me to? One IEP meeting. One night you helped me through a sensory overload? Jennifer's face crumbled. I was sick, Tyler. I was struggling. Grandma Rose was 72 when you left me with her. She learned everything about autism. She drove me to therapy twice a week for 8 years. She held me when I couldn't handle loud sounds. She taught herself programming so she could understand my passion. She used her retirement money for my needs, and she never, not once, made me feel like a burden. He paused, his finger tapping once on the stand. You want custody of me? Or custody of $3.2 million? The courtroom went silent. Judge Hendricks leaned forward. Her expression transformed into something sharp and knowing. Tyler's simple, logical questions had done what hours of legal argument couldn't, revealed the truth in a way no one could deny. Jennifer was crying openly now, but they weren't tears of manipulation anymore. They were tears of someone caught, exposed, forced to face what she'd really done. Tyler walked back to me and took my hand. Grandma, he whispered. That small smile on his face. I told you, just let her talk. Judge Hendricks ruled in our favor that day. Full custody remained with me, with a restraining order against Jennifer until Tyler turned 18. But more than that, more than the legal victory, was what happened after. Tyler's story got picked up by a local news station, then a national one. His app downloads tripled, but he did something that still makes me cry when I think about it. He established a foundation with a portion of his earnings to help grandparents raising grandchildren, especially those with special needs kids. He named it Rose's Garden Foundation because that's who my grandson is, someone who takes his pain and turns it into something that helps others grow. I'm 73 now, Tyler's 16, preparing for college, still living with me, still my greatest joy. Jennifer sent one letter, months after the trial, saying she was sorry. I haven't responded. Maybe someday, maybe never. That's not for me to decide anymore, but I'll tell you what I learned through all this. Family isn't always blood. It's who shows up, who stays, who loves you through the hard parts, and celebrates the victories. It's the ones who see your worth when the world tries to label you, limit you, or leave you behind. Tyler taught me that brilliance comes in many forms. That different doesn't mean less, and that sometimes the quiet ones have the loudest truth. My daughter abandoned her autistic son 10 years ago, and I raised him alone. At 15, he built a $3.2 million app. She came back with a lawyer, claiming his money. Our lawyer said we might lose, but my grandson calmly whispered, "Just let her talk." And in doing so, he showed everyone in that courtroom exactly who he was, not someone to be pitied or taken advantage of, but someone extraordinary, someone who'd learned love from his grandma and turned it into something the whole world could benefit from. That's my story. That's our story. And honey, if you're raising grandchildren, if you're fighting battles you never thought you'd have to fight, if you're wondering if you're strong enough, you are. You absolutely are. Love always finds a way to win, even when the odds seem impossible, even when you're 72. with arthritis, and a 15-year-old genius who just needed someone to believe in him. Thank you for listening to this old woman's story. I hope it touched your heart the way living it touched mine. God bless you all.